Shabbat Shalom, friends. This week we'll have an unusual treat in the energy that is going to be supplied by the reading, by our participation in the reading of this section known as Vayetze. I personally am so pleased and content with this section because it provides the credibility for our presentation of Zoharic concepts which go far and deep into the 30th century. Forget about the 25th century, into the 30th century, and that's why, of course, the center has been the spearhead of innovation that has trickled down into the scientific world by virtue of our consciousness, the consciousness of understanding that there is something on a very practical, physical basis, something known as immortality, something that we this year have chosen as our goal, the removal of that ultimate threat and chaos-causing discipline, doctrine, known as time, space, and motion. And so I therefore refer to the beginning of the section in which it says, and Joseph had a dream, and he saw a ladder going up, angel going up the ladder, down the ladder, going up the ladder and down the ladder. And God is present in this dream. And he says that I am the Lord, your Lord of your father Abraham, God of Isaac, and the land that you lie upon her, L'cha etnenu ulazadecha. I shall give this land to your children, to you and to your children. And of course, all commentators raise the obvious question. I mean, God, how much space does a person or Yaakov occupy and therefore the God promising Jacob that he will inherit this land. I mean, the land is what? Jacob was 6 feet tall, 20 feet tall, and the width of 5 feet. I mean, we're talking about a very small dimension, and yet, this is what he's promising. The land that you lie upon her. And so Rashi, the foremost commentator on Chumash as well as the Zohar, in raising that question, Rashi answers something so simple. And yet, I guess, for those who don't question, those who are not inquisitive, those who are not of the Kabbalistic frame of consciousness where we accept nothing because we understand that by virtue of the verses and the letters that are mentioned, there is a much greater, more significant hidden meaning within the words, within every verse of Torah, and that we cannot treat it in a literal sense. And so what does Rashi answer? What God did was roll up the whole land of Israel. You know, like a scroll, it's very broad, very long if you stretch it out, probably can reach almost, maybe 600-700 feet. But he rolled up the entire land of Israel like a scroll. And then when it became all rolled up, it fitted into that area where Jacob was lying. So there we've got our answer. Rolled up the land of Israel, and this is what I have promised I will give you. It's all there. Oh, it's rolled up, but it's all there. And of course, this is so simple. As we always have been told by the traditionalists, Rashi is the thing that one must study before even embarks on the study of Kabbalah. And we know that that is such a misrepresentation of the truth because Rashi, because of its simplicity, is so profound, so deep, that without Zohar, difficult to understand even Rashi. What did Rashi mean here? And so from here emerges another aspect of credibility towards the center's idea, which of course originated in Zohar, that the idea of time, space, and motion is but an illusion. And we have undertaken that goal of undoing this concept of the limitations of time, space, and motion, that we must be governed by these limitations. And so the center has decided this is the year that hopefully, with the critical mass that is so necessary, doesn't require everybody, but a critical mass. What that critical mass is, I must confess, I do not know. But with that critical mass of consciousness and understanding, a time, space, motion. In fact, we even agree with science. They also, in theoretical physics, claim that the idea of time, space, and motion is but an illusion. But they have a little difficulty in practical physics. What are you going to do? It doesn't work. It still means to travel from here to London is going to take me 11 hours. Whereas if the limitation of time, space, and motion does not apply, I can be there within a moment. Why? Because the space that seems to be occupied from London to Los Angeles is really an illusion. That distance is an illusion. In fact, I can be in London in a minute because it's right here. Now, I'm not asking, and I'm not even saying I fully comprehend that idea. I don't believe maybe even science fully comprehends the idea. But the minute we begin to inject this kind of consciousness out there into the cosmos, and by the same token, replace, while we may not even understand, but replace the concept that time, space, and motion is an inevitable limitation, and rather infuse our consciousness with the idea, no, it's really an illusion. I may not understand how and why it is an illusion, but nevertheless, that illusion is going to disappear. For distance, time, motion, meaning requiring a motion of going from Los Angeles to London, requires so much time, so much traversing of a distance dimension, and of course, the space. And so here we have an affirmation. A time, space, and motion is literally an illusion. And therefore, when God stated to Jacob This is the land that I shall give to you and to your children. Excuse me. What he was referring to, and to provide us with the benefit for those of us who are making this effort, a concerted effort, and I know it must be an effort that requires a great deal of perseverance, a great deal of reversal of consciousness to come to this conclusion, because we shall ultimately, sooner than later, benefit from this idea. And so what we have in the reading is the support from the light force of God to help us in understanding, to help us in achieving a consciousness that will ultimately eliminate the limitations of time, space, and motion and bring us to the realization, and on a very practical level, this elimination of this awesome chaotic feature, which indeed is one of the basic fundamentals which create the chaos that we live in. So we're headed soon, as Jacob understood, in the removal of time, space, and motion. Another very, very important section is, again, where does Jacob meet Rachel? Where does he meet Rachel? Meets her at the well. Do you remember? The well plays such a significant part in Torah. Why? Well, everybody meets at the well. Moses met his future wife at the well. Jacob meets his future wife at the well. Isaac's wife was met at the well. Abraham had disputes over the well. Is it that important that we know where he meets her? It's almost like a Pisces would say, being told that, did you hear? The president met his wife yesterday in Maryland on a street corner. They bumped into each other. And the Pisces says, oh, by the way, what street was it? Give me a break. Do I have to know where they met? Just interesting that they met and didn't know each other was there or going to be there. That's interesting. But now you're asking me, where? What street was it? Give me a break. Who needs that? Same thing here. I have to know they met her at a well. But as we have already revealed from the Zohar, the well is referring to tapping into this aspect known as antimatter. If you're not familiar with antimatter, this certainly is not going to be a discourse on antimatter. I urge you to pursue this matter of antimatter because this is the key to man's survival. As you know, Center is working on so many fronts to improve the quality of life, not only in Los Angeles, but around the entire world, not only employing people within the centers, but rather including science, heads of government, heads of large corporations, to bring them all together to an understanding about the importance of releasing a greater quantity of antimatter into this universe. And we are successful certainly not enough. We still live in a polluted, completely polluted environment. Without going into the details, but when you sit where I'm sitting from, reading daily reports from all around the world, you begin to understand that, man, we do indeed live in a universe today that is not fit for living. So we have this opportunity to tap into and reveal more of this antimatter by virtue of this aspect known as the well. Known as the well. Beautiful. And then we have what I think is probably the most significant part of this section. And that is the marriage of, not that the marriage was that important, but we do have the marriage of Jacob with the two sisters known as Leah and Rachel, and they have children. They have children. And Jacob decides, it's time to leave. Time to leave. And so there's a whole story which, it sounds so preposterous that Torah would be spending this much ink on such a doctrine which the world reveres, but yet, what's the doctrine about? What's this writing about? Well, Jacob wants to leave. After all, some of the enormous wealth that has been gathered by him and his father-in-law is now they've got to split. They've got to split the wealth. The wealth is predominantly made up of cattle. It goes on to say that Jacob told Laban, I'll tell you what, speckled, circled animals, cows, sheep, goats, are usually not in abundance. Rather, most animals are born without spots, circles, except, of course, the zebra. That's what the zebra is all about. But I'm talking about cattle, usually without speckles, without circles around their body. And so he says, I'll take the speckled ones, I'll take the circled ones, etc. And I'll leave everything else of the new cattle that's born, everything else belongs to you. So what did Jacob do? Came upon a brilliant idea that when the animals cohabitated, he placed before them branches that he had created, had taken off the bark from these. You imagine? Look what we're talking about. Taking off the bark of these branches, and when you say it's taking off, meaning creating a picture of circles, of speckles, and so on. And when they cohabitated, placed it before them, so that when they gave birth, amazingly, all of these female animals gave birth to speckled and circled animals. Ooh. And so that was the way he left with such riches because they were so wealthy to begin with. So he was a nice guy. He left everything to Laban. But, can you imagine a cow having three or two? I mean, there's enormous wealth. How? By this brilliant idea of peeling off a bark, and in that way, walking away with a great deal of wealth and riches. Is this interesting? Based on this story alone, could there be any semblance of significance? I mean, could we live without it? The answer probably is yes. So why would Torah find it so important that we be told about this story? The answer, my friends, is so profound that Rabbi Ashlag, the founder of the Center, 80 years ago, for the newcomers to this site, wrote a series of volumes on a work which is known as the study of the 10 luminous emanations, where these voluminous volumes discuss those Hebrew terms, nakud, akudim, and ubrudim. My friends, this is the secret, again here, of the beginning of creation. It's just a couple of words, and it therefore required Rabbi Ashlag for the luminous work to begin to comprehend the entire processes of creation, which we can be privy to. Sure, it requires a great deal of study, but you can't become a physicist with a couple of hours of instruction. So, and now we're going far beyond the laws of physics or the area of physics covered. It doesn't cover everything. It covers physics. Does it cover medicine? Does it cover astronomy? Does it cover biology? Does it cover zoology? And I can go on and on and on. But here we have this awesome opportunity to tap into the comprehensive knowledge of creation and all that it entails, all of the knowledge on how this world and everything within it, all existence, came about. You realize to be privy to that information, while maybe our conscious mind, the rational mind, certainly could not comprehend all of it, but never underestimate the 99% of the real us, and that is the real subconscious mind. Rational mind takes care of 1%. We are told by psychiatrists, by psychologists, that we make use of maybe 3-4% of our potential mind. Where's the rest of it? And this gives us that opportunity to begin to expand, because this knowledge becomes embedded. Even though we do not comprehend, even though we do not experience on a physical level the full dimensions of what creation enveloped, entailed, included. And here we have this singular point in time where we capture all of this information. It's all there. How do you reveal it? How do I reveal my full potential? That is exactly the study of Kabbalah. That is primarily the purpose and goal of the center, to improve our lives. How can we improve our lives? By creating a fuller awareness of what's going on in this world. Raising our consciousness to a point where we begin to see things as they are and not be misled by the illusionary corruption and misrepresentation that is so rampant in our lives. Shabbat shalom to all of you.